The 2024 college football season is officially here, and today I'm going to give you guys my 5 top ranked tackles in college football at the moment. If the NFL draft were to be held next week, these 5 guys will all likely be first round picks. Some of them could slip, obviously, as the year continues, as we get more tape from some of these guys. Some of them have to prove a couple of things, and we're going to get into all of that in this video. And if you guys have supported my content in the past and watched any of my videos, you guys know my rankings are generally different than the average rankings out there. Usually when I rank people, I rank them based off the tape that I see and how I think it'll translate into the NFL. There's a reason why I had guys like Deion Jones a lot lower than the average person. I had a guy like Olufashanu and Tyler Guyton ranked a lot higher than the average person. And I'm not saying Deion Jones can't be a good player, right? He obviously still can be. But when the consensus were saying he's a top 20 pick in the I think it was 2023 NFL draft at that time, he obviously was not that, right? So I'm excited for this one. Let's just get right into this. We're going to start with number 5. This is a guy that's a very, very solid football player from Minnesota. That is going to be Aireontae, Ersery, left tackle, Minnesota, 6'6", 330, has massive size. He's pretty quick for that size as well. Very solid in pass pro, has a crazy reach. When he gets his hands on you, he's going to shut you down. All right, and I think that's pretty clear right away with this guy's tape. Now, he is at Minnesota, so he's not playing Alabama every single week. He's not playing Ohio State every single week. But the guy's very solid in his own right. And if you watch his tape from last year, the guy was really, really solid. And coming into this year, he's kind of just proven exactly the type of player he is. Very solid in pass pro, uses his hands well. He's large, he's strong, and he's a people mover, right? At the end of the day, when he gets his hands on people, he moves them out of gaps. He's able to anchor down. He's able to do all the things you want to see out of an NFL offensive tackle. But there is one concern that NFL scouts have with this guy, and that is going to be his movement is not exactly what you'd want out of a starting tackle. You know, Tyler Guyton's tape was pretty damn good in college, but he did have a couple of struggles. And people still were willing to take him in the first round because of the fact that he was so quick and he was so explosive. Deion Jones had phenomenal tape. Arguably one of the best tape, I had seen in a number of years, but he ended up not being a first round pick. And a part of that was because of the fact that he wasn't super quick, right? So NFL teams want tackles that are quick, that are athletic, because what happens in the NFL is you got these defensive ends that in 1 week are super strong, super fast, might not be as fast. And then the following week, you might have guys that are, Micah Parsons that are insanely fast. Right, so as an offensive tackle in the NFL, you have to be able to handle all the different types of pass rushers, essentially. And Ersery has shown that he struggles with guys that are a little bit quicker. From his tape in 2024, over the first 2 weeks, he's lost a couple of snaps because guys are a little bit faster than him. I saw one player, a guy kind of like juked him out, and he was able to beat him. That's one thing that you're going to have to keep an eye on with Ersery. Is he able to show us that he can consistently handle that aspect of things? Now, again, Ersery's my number 5 ranked offensive tackle. Some people do have him ranked as one of the top 2 or 3 guys. I do like him. I do think he's going to be a top 2 round tackle. But, kind of analyzing these tackles in the draft process so far, this year is going to be interesting because a lot of tackles aren't that tall. They're not that long. And hopefully as the updated official numbers come out during the combine process, we're able to see guys that are maybe a little bit taller than where they're kind of listed. And it shouldn't matter, but unfortunately, in the world of scouting, it matters, right? We know that teams aren't drafting guys that are like 6'3.5" to play tackle. But the number 5 guy on our list does not have to worry about that. The number 4 guy doesn't either. And this is a guy that's very, very interesting to me. Jonah Savaiinaea out of Arizona. Phenomenal football player. He's a junior. He's 6'5". He's super, super long. Very solid in pass pro. Has phenomenal movement. And to me, this guy really doesn't have a whole lot of struggles. I think the only area of his game that he struggles with is his hands and kind of how they land on defensive linemen. Sometimes it is inconsistent. Sometimes you'll see him use like the circle technique where he comes underneath. Other times he'll like double hand punch guys. He doesn't really show the use of independent hands. So I think in that aspect, when it comes to his technique, he can continue to improve a little bit just to be more consistent. But the guy's legit, right? When it comes to run blocking, he takes very, very solid angles. Down blocks, he's able to move people. Generally speaking, the guy's a very, very good football player. And Arizona's doing something right. Last year they had Jordan Morgan that came out of Arizona, and I believe he's a first round pick, went to the Packers, and he's now the Packers starting guard. So, you kind of just see that Arizona has been doing it right over the past year or so, and Jonah Savaiinaea is going to be the next guy coming out of Arizona. Now, Arizona this year played New Mexico, and they played Northern Arizona. So, competition-wise, I think that's one thing that teams are going to want to know, and he is a junior, so he will be eligible for the Senior Bowl. I don't know if you guys know this, but the underclassmen can now attend the Senior Bowl. So he would theoretically be able to attend the Senior Bowl. So we'll see if he actually ends up attending, and maybe if he can show himself, have a good Senior Bowl against some of the other top tier competition, he can potentially rise his stock. Now, some people do have him ranked as one of the top 2 or 3 tackles. For me, number 4 on my list. I do really, really like this guy. And I think, if there's one guy that could end up being the number 1 guy on my list, this is the guy, right? If there's one guy that can go from, 5 to first or 4 to first, Jonah Savaiinaea is the guy, right? So he's a guy to kind of keep an eye on. Let's get into number 3. This is a guy that a lot of people are not going to agree with because most lists actually have Will Campbell as the number 1 ranked offensive tackle coming out, but I have him ranked as number 3. And I don't have him ranked as number 3 because he's like a bad football player or anything like that. In fact, I think this guy, from a pure tape perspective, he's the best tackle in this class, right? From a pure tape perspective. Everything that Will Campbell does just tells me that, hey, this guy's it, man. This guy's going to be a phenomenal player at the next level. Will Campbell's very, very smart. He sees things, he processes things, and nothing is going to trick this guy. You can run a game on his side. You can bring a delayed blitz off the edge. He'll see everything, right? There's nothing that is going to trick LSU's Will Campbell. Very smart, very good blocking as well when it comes to run blocking. Everything about him is phenomenal. Even in pass pro, I think he's pretty solid, but he does have one issue. I think there's 2 issues. The first one is really, he doesn't have great bend, right? He doesn't stay low out of his stance. I think those things could hurt you. And then the second thing is some people think this guy's built more as a guard as opposed to a tackle. And, if you actually look at the measurables, 6'5" and 3/5 of an inch, that's not bad, right? That's actually pretty solid. But he does have a very, very, very bad arm length and wingspan. So let's talk about this. So if you guys don't know this, we have actual official information that gets put out there, specifically measured information. Before the combine actually happens, teams already have this data. This stuff's sent around, and I do work for the Hula Bowl, if you guys don't know, so I have access to some of this information as well. And Will Campbell's arm length is an area of concern for NFL teams. So at the moment, his arm length is 32 inches and 7/8 of an inch, so 32 and 7/8 of an inch. And that's less than Rashawn Slater, who a lot of teams took off their board because they said this guy's arm length is not good enough. So Rashawn Slater had a 33-inch arm length, and this guy's arm length is less than that. Wingspan, he has 2 inches less than Rashawn Slater. Rashawn Slater was at 80 inches. Will Campbell is at 78 and 1/4 of an inch. To me, teams are concerned about this, right? Because at the end of the day, you can be legit when it comes to your height. You can be 6'6", 6'7". Teams don't really care about height, right? What teams want to know is, can you get your arms out there when a guy tries to bull rush you? When a guy tries to long arm you, are you able to get your hands underneath and grab onto that chest plate? As an offensive tackle, do you struggle with guys that are longer or taller than you, right? And I always want to put this information out there because I know people are going to say, hey, with Rashawn Slater, a team still took him in the first round, and he's an all-pro caliber player, and that is true. But remember, Rashawn Slater is not the rule. Rashawn Slater is the exception. Rashawn Slater is the one of 40 tackles that end up getting drafted, and they never work out as a tackle, so they have to move to guard. Right? Rashawn Slater is like the one guy that ended up working out. For every Rashawn Slater, there's hundreds of guys that are like KT Levinston. There's guys like Peter Skronsky, guys that were tackles and then had to move to guard, or, in the NFL, they're just projected as guards. There's a lot of these guys out there. And to me, I think Will Campbell might end up being a guard in the NFL. Now, if a team does want to draft this guy as a tackle and make him your full-time starting tackle, I don't see why you wouldn't give him that opportunity. But arm length, wingspan, it is going to be a concern, as well as the athletic ability, right? He's not that athletic. He kind of stands up. He stands tall. Even in his stance, you can see that he doesn't really bend well, right? So, Will Campbell, number 3 offensive tackle, jumping to number 2. You got Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. Very, very, very athletic football player. Very, very good movement. He's solid technique. He can anchor down. Everything about Kelvin Banks Jr. to me is phenomenal. Now, one of the interesting things with this list is there's a lot of juniors on this list. So technically, most of these guys could stay in college if they wanted to. There are projections out there like Will Campbell. Some people are saying he's actually not going to end up coming out. We'll see if it actually happens or he doesn't come out. I would hope he comes out. Kelvin Banks is another guy that some people are saying he might not come out. But Banks is interesting because some people have Banks ranked as their number 1 offensive tackle. And you can watch his tape and you recognize why that's the case. From a height and weight perspective, it hasn't been updated since his freshman year. 6'4", 320. The combine process is going to be big for Banks. If he measures in at 6'5", if the arm length is, 33, 34, 35 inches, he's going to be a first-round pick. He might be the first tackle taken, in fact. There's not a whole lot this guy struggles with. Now, he does sometimes struggle with power. And I do think that's going to be the one concern that some teams might have with Kelvin Banks is they might say, hey, he's 6'4", he's struggling with power. Is that going to be an issue in the NFL, right? And that's going to be the one thing with Kelvin Banks that we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on. But to me, he's my number 2 ranked tackle right now. I think there's a chance Kelvin Banks could fall a little bit. We'll see how he kind of plays the rest of this season. That Georgia-Texas game is going to be a big game to really be able to, see how this guy handles guys like Mikael Williams. Mikael Williams will probably be a first-round pick as well, Georgia defensive end. Georgia has a couple other good defensive linemen as well, but that's the game that most people are going to want to watch, and that could either kill this guy's draft stock or it could rise or raise this guy's draft stock, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. Again, very solid when it comes to being able to anchor, very solid when it comes to his technique, fundamentals, everything's very, very legit. He shows some physical tendencies, although that is kind of an inconsistent trait that he has. Sometimes he does struggle in pass pro, right? Although he can anchor down, the technique sometimes is off. Sometimes you'll see this guy try to make contact with the guy and he'll just miss, or a guy might double hand swipe him and then it'll throw him off balance a little bit. So it's just little things this guy has to clean up. Some people do think Kelvin Banks might also end up being a guard in the NFL, which would be kind of interesting in its own right. My number 1 tackle, I think this guy's the best tackle in this class, and he might not even come out. He's a true junior this year. The guy's a phenomenal player. It is the Oregon starting left tackle, Josh Conerly Jr. Phenomenal football player, man. Absolutely phenomenal. What's interesting about Conerly is this guy's not ranked on anyone's top 2 or 3. Like, for the most part, some people don't even have this guy ranked. Some people have him as 6, 7, and 8. In fact, I think I went to walterfootball.com, which is one of the ones that I've used at least in the past. I don't really use them anymore. And Conerly's ranked 6 on Walter Football. I looked at some mock drafts. PFF has this guy ranked as 8 or 9. Conerly is the best tackle in this class. And I'm telling you guys, today is September 12th, 2024. And I am telling you guys right now that Josh Conerly Jr. is the best tackle in the 2025 NFL Draft. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy ends up being the first overall pick. If that team that's picking 1 needs a tackle, Conerly's the guy. Now, I will say this. I think this tackle class is a little bit weaker than the tackle classes we've had in the past. But I do think there's some guys that could have a lot of success. There are some guys that are going to bust out this year for sure. Conerly's one of those guys, just an absolute stud. Elite movement, man. And for that size as well, to be able to move the way he moves, great footwork. His pass pro is incredible. He has a good reach, and he actually utilizes it. And then to have that size and then play with the bend he plays with, he's very, very low relative to how tall he is, right? He plays low, stays low, uses good leverage. He's athletic. There's just not a lot that this guy struggles with. Now, some NFL scouts will say that, hey, we want to see what type of strength this guy actually has. Keep in mind the strength aspect's interesting because this guy's only in his 3rd year in college, right? He just started his 3rd year. And the thing is if this guy stays for all 4 years, which, most of these guys are going to end up staying for 4 years. Josh Conerly might not even come out this year. but strength can always be improved, right? Your power, your strength, that can always get better. The things you can't teach sometimes is movement. You know, if a guy's slow, he's always going to be slow. It's impossible to get faster. Your movement is not going to change. You are who you are, right? 2, 3 years into college, you're not going to get that much faster. You might increase it like 2 or 3%, but generally speaking, you know, if you're a guy like DeJuan Jones, and I use him as an example, I can use Trent Brown as an example as well. You know, when you're those guys that are big and strong and powerful, if you don't have the movement in college, you're not going to really ever develop that. It's very, very hard to develop that type of movement. As opposed to you look at a guy like Penei Sewell, you know, he's tall, he's long, he's large, but he moves incredibly well, right? Trent Brown's never going to become Penei Sewell in his movement. Josh Conerly has that elite type of movement. And he's big, he's strong, he's powerful. Now, he's not as strong as powerful as some of the other tackles, but again, that's something you can improve. He has the frame. He has everything there to be able to kind of improve it. He has played 2 games so far this season. He played against Idaho as well as Boise State. Boise State does have a defensive end named Ahmad Hassan. He's a pretty good defensive end. I think he'll probably get drafted, and Conerly shut him down mostly. Right? There was one play where Conerly cut him, and although Hassan fell, he ended up getting up, and the quarterback is a one-step drop, never threw the ball. Quarterback got sacked. But that sack statistically, at least according to PFF, goes on the quarterback, not on the offensive lineman because of that actual play. But he pretty much shut down this guy that should be an NFL caliber player. And I think for the most part, Conerly's going to shut down most people he plays. I'm excited to continue watching this guy, man. He's my #1 tackle right now. That could obviously change. Oregon does have another tackle as well. Their right tackle is another guy that could potentially make it into the NFL. Some people also have him ranked as the #1 tackle, and it's kind of weird because LSU also has a right tackle. Some people have him ranked as the #1 tackle in Emory Jones. So this tackle, I shouldn't say class is weird. It's not necessarily weird. I think it's just very early on in the process, right? I think as we have more game, as we have more tape, we'll have guys that are going to break out as well. Plus, you know, a lot of people rely on those scouting reports, right? Bledsoe, NGS. A lot of people rely on those scouting reports to tell you where guys are ranked, and sometimes those reports aren't 100% accurate. Sometimes those reports don't have guys, you know, Darnell Wright's a great example of it. Darnell Wright came out of nowhere, right? And I shouldn't say he came out of nowhere. He was always good, but he had a really, really good year for Tennessee that final year before he came out, and he wasn't on the radar until probably like 2.5, 3 months before the actual draft happened. When the season officially ended, he was ranked as like a 3rd, 4th round pick. And the reason why is because so many people rely on those reports by Bledsoe as well as NGS, right? So I'm excited, man. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with my list? Who are some guys that I should be checking out? Let me know down in the comments below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video.